wow. I mean, just wow. I don't know what took me so freaking long to get around to playing Baldur's Gate 3, but now I'm finally playing it. I can say that it took me too dang long. But yes, that is right, everyone. I have waited long enough to get my hands on the 2023 Game of the Year. Now that I got the game and given myself a good few hours of playtime, I thought I would share my opinion on this fantastic game. But been long enough for this video to get out, so let's just push this aside and get to Baldur's Gate 3. So yeah, I have not played Baldur's Gate 3 yet, and I don't know why it took me so long to actually play it. It has been at the top of my wish list since its release. I just never got around to buying it, thinking other games would fill my time better. Boy, thinking about some of those other games though, the day before, cough cough, they were mistakes and I probably should have just gotten this game a while ago. But during the holidays, a good friend of mine actually surprised me and my fiance both with copies of the game. I flipped out, installed this massive game instantly, and started playing it. And this was just an amazing gift, so thank you, Chris. But I was pretty quick to realize why this game got all the love it did and why it ended up the Game of the Year. Now, actually getting into my first thoughts on Baldur's Gate 3, I have a few things to say, to be honest. This is one of those games I actually had to fully immerse myself in to fall in love with it. Not by the game's fault, but by my own personal preference. So, first off, I will say now, the cinematics in this game are literally movie tier. I felt like I was watching the next Marvel movie where Davy Jones jumps in from the Pirates of the Caribbean universe. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but Larian just did a fantastic job on the cutscenes and cinematics. Then getting into the actual gameplay, I was met with something I hated right off the bat. See, I cannot stand point and click movement for some reason. That's why I don't play certain MMOs along with certain strategy games like League of Legends. I know it's something I gotta get over, but it's just something I don't like. And so this was that first hump for me to get over. Though, there are certain games, like Kenshi, that I can just see past that movement style as the game is so wonderful it's worth playing. Luckily enough for me, this is one of those games. I did try to find a way to change it to WASD movement, and I did try using a control, only to find modding the only way to change the keyboard movements and controller just not feeling right, so I decided to deal with the controls. Now it seems perfectly natural to me, and I see past that personal nitpick. And speaking of looking, even the game looks fantastic. It might not match the quality of those cinematics, but I was just blown away by how much detail was put into a top-down game. The developers and animators really went all out. I've said it before in other videos, but Larian is just an amazing development studio, and Baldur's Gate 3 is just another testament to what they can achieve graphically and gameplay-wise. Speaking of gameplay, there are so many things that you start to notice with Baldur's Gate 3 that make it feel like a Dungeons & Dragons game, because it is. Like the narration seeming like a dungeon master is recalling your adventure, and you ultimately have no control over it. Whether it be the Ithalid or the Absolute, or maybe you're just crazy. And then the dice rolls you have to do in order to succeed or fail certain perception and persuasion checks. Things like that make it feel like you are living out an actual D&D campaign, which not only goes together really well with the setting and playstyle of the game. And speaking of D&D, that brings me over to the next thing I want to talk about. And this is something that occurs throughout the whole game, and is something that not only feels so great to have, but also brings in so much more reason to be careful and watch how you play. That being the absolute full freedom and full RPG aspect that Baldur's Gate 3 provides. Just like any D&D campaign, if you want to do something, there's like a 99% chance that you can do it. There really is nothing holding back your imagination. Whether it has to do with things that you want to do, choices you want to make, quests you want to take, places you go. This turned into a Dr. Seuss book, but people you hope, people you attack. It goes on forever when it comes to choices. One good example of the choice making is this. I have 3 playthroughs going on right now, 1 of my own and 2 with others. In my own playthrough, I decided to help Lae'zel, the Gith woman who helps on the Nautiloid along with someone being on the main cover of the game. Well, she gets kidnapped by Tieflings and you have to help her, and she joins your group. In doing so, she tells you that the Gith have a way to deal with the Ithilid and you just have to find the Gith healer to advance the main quest. Well, in the playthrough with my fiance, through some failed choices, we ended up having to fight and actually kill Lae'zel, meaning she was gone, no longer part of our group or the game, and we were at square one with how to deal with the Ithilid as the Gith were out of the picture. Like, that's awesome. There was no quest fails, there was no game ends or reloads. Freedom of choice caused us to have to deal and find a new way around the problem. And all these choices are accompanied by a huge world that are full of them and full of the freedom and full of an amazing storyline. And some of those choices, as I said, can end up putting you in some hard situations. And I'll also say that this game, along with some of those situations, are ruthless. Like, you really need to remember to save, or you will find yourself delving through a dungeon thinking everything's okay, then randomly you get hit by a fire-breathing statue, sending you back a whole hour. Or some of the fights you get in will have 2 or 3 goblins with like 10 health, which makes you feel a little cocky. Then you get into a fight with 8 people, all highly skilled with like 50 health, and right when that fight starts, you remember that you never saved. So just remember to save, because I know I didn't. Moving on now to the story and my thoughts on what I at least have gone through so far, because yeah, it will probably take me quite a while to finally get through the whole story, but so far, slight spoilers ahead, you've been warned, I've enjoyed every moment of the story. You know, the beginning sequence of getting the worm put into your eye, and then the Nautiloid crashing, and you having to get to Baldur's Gate to find a healer, learning about the Goblin Uprising, and the Absolute and True Souls, just a bunch of side lore on your way there too. As I said, I have not gotten too far into the story quite yet, but I can say that I have not disliked a single moment so far. You know, I'll admit that I did not want Baldur's Gate 3 to win Game of the Year, as I wanted Alan Wake 2 to win. And honestly, that still is my game of the year. That being said though, I can fully see why Baldur's Gate 3 ended up walking away with it, and I am totally okay with that outcome after finally playing the game. Another aspect of the story though that I really enjoyed was the companions. Now in most games, sure, your companions have their own little side story and personality, but they are always different than the usual NPC, kind of developing around the character, if that makes sense. Not in Baldur's Gate 3 though. I love that the companions are their own characters, having their own little side stories and objectives, like Shadowheart being the follower of Shar and the Dark Child, or how the first time Gale dies, you learn of his flute and the whole side quest to bring him back. It just brings more life to the companions instead of having them be brainless AI, totally relying on the player's next move. Along with that, you can of course start your own little relationships with said companions too, helping them with their own adventures and even falling in love. I don't know, I just think Larian did a great job with the companions, reminding me sort of Mass Effect, but hey, I don't know. The story altogether is just really good, and I can't wait to get even further into it. And moving on to the last topic of today's video, and that would have to be the multiplayer side of the game, which is where things shine in my opinion. Starting up a new world with my fiance, both of us having our own little backstory and our own sidekicks. The way you can have your own conversations or listen into your friends' conversations. See them roll the dice, either failing or winning. It adds to the D&D aspect of it all, as if you are bringing along your friends, starting up a new campaign. It's also helpful seeing as you might not have certain buffs and skills that your friends might have, and vice versa. Plus, the battles are so much easier having someone to help you make decisions. Maybe they have more skill at the game, or maybe it gives you someone to blame when you have to reload. All in all, when it comes to the multiplayer though, it is where the game shines, and I think it's the way to play when available. If you can't play with friends though, the game is still great solo. This would be a longer topic, but to Larian's credit, the multiplayer is honestly no different than the single player, only with, well, other people. So I'll just leave that topic there. But now I think I'm just gonna wrap this video up with my final thoughts on Baldur's Gate 3, 2023's Game of the Year. As I said, I do wish that Alan Wake 2 won Game of the Year, but I am perfectly happy with Baldur's Gate 3 taking that title, even if it doesn't mean that much. With all the small details, from all the different dialogue options to the different camps depending on location, this game is just, it's top tier, and I am mad that I have not played it sooner. And I have to say that if any of you have not played Baldur's Gate 3, but you have the means to, it is a definite must play. I mean, sure, this is one of those games that just throws you in without any real tutorial, but at the same time, kind of works in the game's favor. I think it's a game that just about anyone could pick up and enjoy. Just about. With all that said and done though, let me know your thoughts on Baldur's Gate 3, whether you loved it or hated it. And let me know your thoughts about this video as well in the comments now. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to hit this video with a like and go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date on everything to come. And if you want to support more videos like this and get your name at the end of every video, plus getting some videos a couple hours early, check out a membership to my YouTube by pressing that little join button below. And lastly, as always, if you liked any music that you heard in this video and you want to check out more, head over to BillyTheWhip on any music platform now. Now that we're here, I thank you all for the support the channel continues to get, and I hope you all have the best day you can possibly have.
Things get dim when the boy gets grim. Play it like a game, but I don't see no squiz. Searching for the fame, but I don't get no hits. That's okay, but imagine if I did. Life would be so different. It would be such a trip. Take a CC.